The day I became the most despised man in Lakeside Estates coincided with the day I seized its greatest power. $500, that's what Karen Wellington and her homeowners association slapped me with for fishing with my grieving daughter. What they didn't know was that I had 4 million reasons to fight back and enough spite to wield every single one of them. If you're watching this story on your phone, sneaking a break from those soul-crushing HOA meetings, leave a comment telling me where you're hiding. I promise this tale will keep you hooked. My name is Remy Thorncroft, and until 2 months ago, I was living what many would call the American dream. I'd spent 15 years carving out a career in venture capital and financial investment, eventually selling my stakes in several tech startups for enough to retire at 42. But life has a cruel way of reminding you that money isn't everything. My wife, Rachel, lost her battle with cancer last year, leaving me to raise our 14-year-old daughter, Celine, alone. The grief nearly shattered us both. The only thing that seemed to ease the pain was fishing, the last activity the three of us had shared before Rachel's health took its final dive. So, when I decided we needed a fresh start, I sought a home near water, a peaceful place where we could heal. Lakeside Estates seemed perfect on paper, upscale homes, good schools, and a stunning 6-acre lake at the heart of the community. The realtor mentioned an HOA but assured me it was just standard stuff, lawn care, paint colors, nothing unusual. I should have caught the hesitation in her voice when she added, the HOA president, Karen Wellington, is dedicated to maintaining property values. I didn't think much of it then. I'd dealt with tough personalities throughout my career. How bad could one neighborhood bureaucrat be? I found out on a quiet Saturday morning in April. Celine and I had been fishing off the community lake's small wooden dock for about an hour. It was the first time in weeks I'd seen my daughter genuinely smile. She'd just caught her second bluegill and was carefully unhooking it when a sharp voice sliced through the calm. "Excuse me, but what exactly do you think you're doing?" The woman approaching was in her late 50s, dressed in pricey athleisure wear, her highlighted blonde hair styled in the universal, "I want to speak to the manager," cut. She clutched a tablet and wore an expression like she'd caught us spray painting the dock. "Good morning," I replied, keeping my tone friendly. "Just enjoying some fishing with my daughter." I extended my hand. "I'm Remy Thorncroft. We moved into the Sycamore Drive house 2 months ago." She ignored my hand, tapping her tablet aggressively. "Mr. Thorncroft, fishing is explicitly prohibited in our community lake. This violates HOA regulations. I'm Karen Wellington, HOA president." She announced her title like she was royalty. "I'll have to issue a violation notice. The fine is $500. I felt Celine tense beside me. "There must be a mistake," I said calmly. The realtor specifically mentioned fishing as a community amenity. It was a selling point. Karen's thin smile didn't reach her eyes. "The regulation was amended last month. All residents were notified via email. Ignorance of the rules doesn't exempt you from following them." She turned her tablet toward me, displaying a document titled, "Amendment to Recreational Use of Community Lake," dated 4 weeks earlier. "We never received any notification," I protested. "I personally oversee all communications," Karen replied with unshakable certainty. "The email was sent to every household. Perhaps you should check your spam folder, though I can't be responsible for residents who don't read official communications." My jaw tightened, but I kept my voice steady. "May I ask why fishing was banned?" "This lake is clearly stocked with fish. I could see bass swimming near the shallow edges." Karen glanced at our fishing gear with disdain. "Environmental and safety concerns. Hooks can injure wildlife, and we've had complaints about the smell of fish and bait disturbing residents enjoying lake views from their homes." She eyed our small tackle box. "Not everyone wants to see this while having their morning coffee on their patios." Something in her tone made me study her closer. The way she surveyed our modest equipment, the slight curl of her lip, this wasn't just about rules. "We're being careful," I said. Seelan and I practice catch and release, and we clean up completely when we're done. Karen's expression hardened. Mr. Thorncroft, perhaps you don't understand how things work at Lakeside Estates. We maintain certain standards. This isn't a public fishing hole. Residents who've lived here for years expect a particular atmosphere. She glanced at Seelan, then back at me. New residents sometimes struggle to adapt to our community culture. People more accustomed to different types of neighborhoods. The implication was clear, and anger surged in my chest. I was about to respond when I heard a sniffle. Seelan's eyes were welling with tears. This was supposed to be our healing place, a spot where she could briefly forget her mother's absence. Now this woman was ruining it with her veiled condescension. We'll pack up, I said quietly, placing an arm around Seelan's shoulders. Please email me the details of the fine and the updated regulations. Karen's smile returned, triumphant. Excellent. I'm glad we understand each other. And do check your email more carefully, Mr. Thorncroft. We wouldn't want further misunderstandings. She turned and walked away, her designer sneakers silent on the manicured grass. As we gathered our gear, Seelan wiped her eyes. Dad, why was that lady so mean? We weren't hurting anything. I didn't have a good answer, at least not one suitable for a 14-year-old. Some people like rules more than they like people, sweetheart, I said finally. Let's go home and have lunch. Later that day, after checking my email, including spam folders, and finding no notification about the fishing ban, I began researching the HOA. What I uncovered was revealing. Karen Wellington had been president for 8 consecutive years. Her day job. Owner of a small but exclusive real estate company specializing in luxury community properties. I found social media posts of Karen hosting waterfront parties at the same lake where she'd find me for fishing, events featuring alcohol and loud music, apparently exempt from community atmosphere concerns. Most telling was a clause buried in the HOA documentation. The lake was a common property amenity belonging to all residents, with no legal distinction granting the HOA absolute control. That evening, as I looked out my window toward the lake, I saw Karen and friends at a lakeside gazebo, wine glasses in hand, laughing. So, they want to play the rules game, I murmured. Fine, but first, I need to know who really owns this water. The next morning, I met Merrick Henderson, a retired attorney living 3 doors down, while he walked his dog. When I mentioned my run-in with Karen, his friendly demeanor darkened. You've met our neighborhood dictator, he said with a grimace. Let me guess, she quoted some obscure regulation and issued a fine. When I nodded, he shook his head. Karen's been running this place like her personal fiefdom for years. Most people pay the fines and keep quiet. He glanced around and lowered his voice. If you're interested in background information, come by for coffee. I've got HOA horror stories. I visited him that afternoon. Merrick's home was filled with law books and framed photos of former colleagues. Over excellent coffee, he shared the community's power structure. Most residents don't realize the lake isn't owned by the HOA, he explained, pulling out a folder of documents. It's owned by Meridian Development Corporation, the original developers. They leased recreational rights to the HOA for a 30-year term, which is why Karen can set rules. He tapped a highlighted date. That lease expires in less than 2 months. This piqued my interest. What happens then? Meridian could renew the lease, sell the lake to the HOA, or find another buyer, Merrick said. Most residents think the HOA owns everything. But here's the kicker, I've heard Meridian is facing financial difficulties and might liquidate assets quickly. Karen knows this. Over the next hour, we dug into public records, uncovering Karen's manipulative patterns beyond petty rule enforcement. Through shell companies tied to her real estate business, she'd been acquiring properties from residents forced to sell after excessive HOA fines. She's after the lake, Merrick concluded. She's in talks with Meridian to buy it for her own company, not the HOA. Word is she plans to limit access and build luxury homes on the shoreline. This explained the fishing ban, not environmental concerns, but a step toward restricting lake use for her development plans. Merrick introduced me to Samuel Washington, a retired bank owner and one of the few residents openly opposing Karen. Samuel, an elegant African-American man in his 60s, had faced Karen's subtle discrimination. In his study, he showed me a database tracking HOA activities over a decade. I started this for record-keeping, he said, gesturing to spreadsheets. But I noticed a pattern in Karen's enforcement. The data was stark. Homeowners of color received violations at 3 times the rate of white neighbors. New residents were cited for infractions ignored in long-standing homeowners. Properties sold below market due to compliance issues often ended up with Karen's shell companies. Her real estate operation is clever, Samuel explained, showing property records. She uses LLCs, Lakeside Investments, Wellington Holdings, Sierra Vista Properties, all tracing back to her, but obscured to avoid suspicion. He documented 6 homes purchased this way over 5 years, excessive violations, declining values, desperate sales, and high-profit resales after renovations. Merrick nodded. The lake is her endgame. Meridian's been struggling since the recession, liquidating assets to cover debts. The lake was never meant to be permanent green space. Original plans included lakefront condos, blocked by environmental regulations that have since relaxed. Samuel added, with Karen's City Hall connections, she could get permits for limited development. A half-dozen luxury homes could bring 7 or 8 million. My venture capital instincts kicked in. Tell me more about Meridian's finances, I said. Samuel's banking contacts revealed Meridian's dire situation, heavy debt from a failed commercial project, maxed credit lines, and quiet sales of land to avoid bankruptcy. The lake, valued at $300,000, was one of their last unencumbered assets. Merrick organized discreet meetings with disgruntled residents at rotating locations, Samuel's home, the library, a bakery's back room. Stories shared a pattern. She cited me for holiday decorations after I opposed her at a town council meeting, said James Morris, a retired teacher. My Christmas lights were fine for 15 years, but suddenly violated a brightness ordinance. Maria Gonzalez, a healthcare worker, shared, my foster kids were banned from the pool for being too loud when Karen's grandchildren wanted to swim. She called it her executive decision. Diana Winters, a young widow, described Karen leading an inspection through her backyard, citing mosquito breeding grounds, followed by 5 violation notices for issues her neighbors weren't cited for. Each story revealed Karen's tactic: isolate opposition, apply selective pressure, and force compliance or exodus. Our coalition grew, and Samuel created a secure messaging group for residents to share experiences safely. We were building an underground resistance. I researched Karen's finances, finding Wellington properties highly leveraged. She'd taken multiple credit lines against her properties to fund her lifestyle and acquisitions. If her lake plan failed, she'd face financial ruin. She's not just in this for profit, I told Merrick and Samuel. It's survival. She's overextended. This made her dangerous but vulnerable. Samuel suggested contacting Robert Chen, a real estate broker with lake property insights. We met at a coffee shop 20 miles away for privacy. Karen's trying to finance a $300,000 lake purchase, Robert confirmed. Meridian's in freefall and needs to close fast. They gave her a 60-day exclusive negotiation, but they'd take a better offer with immediate payment. He added, her real estate empire is smoke and mirrors. She's leveraged to the hilt, 3 bad months from collapse. The lake is her lifeline. As a venture capitalist, I saw the opportunity in this distressed asset. I had the capital for an all-cash offer Meridian couldn't refuse. The question was timing. Wait until Karen commits publicly, Samuel advised. Let her announce the special assessment for lake improvements. When she's fully invested, we pull the rug out. Merrick agreed. The more she spends, the worse the fallout when we succeed. We maintain secrecy, appearing as disgruntled residents documenting HOA overreach. Karen knew we were meeting, evidenced by increased violations against our group, but not our goal. Robert arranged a discreet meeting with Tom Branson, Meridian's executive handling the lake sale. In a downtown law office, Tom confirmed Meridian's desperation. We gave Wellington Properties a 60-day window, but we can entertain other offers with rapid closing. Karen's offer is $300,000 over 18 months with complex financing. We need cash now. I made my move. I'll offer $350,000, all cash, closing in 7 days. Tom's eyebrows shot up. That would get my board's attention. But Karen has local government friends. She won't take this quietly. I'm counting on it, I smiled. 2 days later, I had a preliminary agreement via Thorncroft Holdings LLC, a company I created to mask my identity. The deal hinged on a standard environmental assessment, completable within a week. Karen sensed my activity. Violation notices flooded in, weed control, landscaping materials, mailbox height, even my garage door's shade of taupe, despite prior approval. Fines piled up, $100, $200. Reaching $2,000 in 2 weeks. Appeals were lost or denied. Then, Seelan left her bike in our driveway for 15 minutes, and a violation notice appeared with photos. Someone was watching our house. The harassment extended to our group. Maria's lawn was cited for being a 1/4 inch too high. James's decade-old bird feeder violated an aesthetic guideline. Diana's recycling bin was 6 inches too close to her garage. But Karen's tactics backfired, driving more residents to our meetings. By week 3, we had 30 households, over a quarter of the community. The breaking point came when Seelan returned from school in tears. Kids are calling us troublemakers, she sobbed. Brianna said her mom told her we're ruining property values and don't belong. Brianna's mother was Karen's ally. The fight had reached my daughter. That night, I considered selling and moving, but Merrick stopped me. That's what she wants, he said. She's driven out 6 families this way, buying their homes cheap through her connections. Don't give her the win. He was right. Walking away would teach Seelan the wrong lesson about facing bullies. That evening, Meridian confirmed the lake's clean environmental assessment and accepted my offer. The paperwork was ready. Reviewing HOA documents, I found Karen's special assessment for lake improvements. Her funding for the purchase required 75% homeowner approval, not the simple majority she claimed. She was bypassing her own rules, assuming no challenge. They've brought this fight to my daughter, I said, closing my laptop. Time to show them what happens when you anger someone who rebuilds systems. I withdrew $350,000 from my investments, 15% above Karen's offer. Samuel offered a $50,000 loan for leverage. Within 48 hours, I signed with Meridian. The 6-acre lake and its 10-foot shoreline were mine, not the HOA's, not Karen's. The timing was perfect. Karen had scheduled an HOA meeting to unveil her vision for the lake, with renderings showing a 20% reduction in water area for a members-only lounge, eliminating fishing spots. I kept my ownership secret, sharing only with Merrick and Samuel. Karen grew aggressive, announcing a $50 monthly special assessment per household for lake maintenance, her war chest for the purchase. At the meeting, her PowerPoint, Elevating Lakeside Estates, outlined how lake reimagining would boost property values. She omitted that her company would handle development and sales of new lakefront homes. She also targeted me indirectly, warning of new elements and financially unstable individuals undermining the community. Samuel defended me, but Karen humiliated him, referencing a resolved IRS audit to paint him as a tax cheat. When Safra Duskland suggested a community vote on lake changes, Karen threatened her flower shop's lease renewal. The intimidation was blatant. I stayed calm, knowing her plans were doomed. Meridian's lawyer called. Karen had been informed the lake was sold to an anonymous buyer, and her negotiations were terminated. Hours later, she was at my doorstep, composure cracking. "What did you do?" she demanded. "I know you talked to Meridian. Did you sabotage my deal?" I smiled. "No idea what you're talking about, Karen. I heard the lake was sold. Hope the HOA knows the new owner." Her eyes narrowed. "This isn't over. The HOA has a recreational use agreement. No one can change access without our approval." "Check the agreement," I said. "It expires in 30 days, and renewal is at the owner's discretion." Her face paled, but she recovered. "We'll sue for access." "Good luck," I said, closing the door. Karen called a closed HOA board meeting, scrambling to identify the buyer and maintain control. She enlisted Mayor James Wilson to explore zoning or eminent domain, but Merrick confirmed these were baseless. I met with a water quality expert and conservation group, finding the lake stressed by years of HOA neglect. Chemical runoff caused algae growth and harmed fish. Karen's environmental concerns were a sham. I hired security and planned property management. Karen's next move was a lakeside party for original homeowners, excluding newer residents, to assert HOA rights. I had already terminated the recreational use agreement early, citing HOA maintenance violations, confirmed by my attorney. The agreement would have expired in a month anyway. At Karen's lake party, I arrived with my lawyer and a cop, announced I now owned the lake, and ended the recreational agreement. Karen protested, but I showed the deed. Everyone had to leave. The party dissolved, and our community began to heal. A year later, Karen was gone, the HOA reformed, and I started a scholarship in Rachel's name. Sometimes, beating a bully means knowing the rules, and waiting to use them.